There's no more powerful voice in the world for food sustainability and justice than Vandana Shiva. Definitely. Okay, before we introduce the final keynote speaker for our event, I just want to give you all a heads up. We just got a request from the Winnemem Wintu tribe, and we asked them what they needed, if they needed our support, and the thing that they asked most was for financial donations. So Wes is right here. He's waving his hand on my left side, your right side on this side. He's going to pass around a bag. Please give anything you can to the Winnemem Wintu tribe. They have recently been fighting for sovereignty over the sacred headwaters that they use for a coming-of-age ceremony for their tribe. It's really important that we support indigenous struggles against colonization, so please give what you can. Please notice the bag coming around now. So. Okay, thank you all for taking the time to come to this historical event. It is truly a great honor to introduce our final keynote speaker. She is one of the most beloved American writers and activists in history. Her books and poetry are required reading for school children and college courses around the world. Her 1982 work, The Color of Purple, is of course a treasured literary classic, winning the National Book Award, and it made her the first African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. But how many of you knew that Alice Walker's scholarship was instrumental in reviving the works of Zora Neale Hurston? As a matter of fact, Hurston's gravesite would not have a gravestone if it were not for Walker's scholarship. Walker has been dedicated to supporting the Palestinian people and condemning the atrocities of Israel's ongoing war against Palestine and Gaza. She traveled to Gaza with members of Code Pink in 2009, and then again on the Gaza Flotilla in 2011. She is a voice not only of justice, peace, and human rights, but of beauty and love and a reverence for life. Please join me in welcoming Alice Walker.
I've been thinking about what I would like to share today, and somehow Virginia Woolf kept coming to mind. Because when I started out as a young writer many, many years ago, I had to face the daunting question of how does one do that as a woman, as a person of color, as someone who is not well-to-do. And I chanced upon her book, A Room of One's Own, which made all the difference in the world to me. It was a revelation because it was so simple. And many of you have probably read it, and it's a tiny book. It's a wonderful book, and I recommend it if you haven't read it. But what she said was, in order for a woman to really be fully herself, to be free, to choose her partner, to choose where she wants to live, to choose what she wants to wear, to choose whatever she wants to choose, and to be a writer, a woman needs a room of her own and 500 pounds a year. Now, I still don't know what that means, 500 pounds, how many dollars that would be, but we have to assume that even in her time, it would mean that you could buy your food, you could buy your clothing, you could educate, if you had children, you could, secure their education. All of those things that we would like to be able to do as free beings. We could make choices. So I was thinking about coming to talk with you this afternoon, and I was thinking that I would love to have something that feels as simple and as graspable as that idea. For us to think about dealing with the world at risk, because, obviously it is just so at risk. In fact, we seem to be losing it. And what I came up with was this thought of my own life. I left the South when I was 18 in school, to go abroad to meet Russians because I feared that my country wanted to bomb them. And through that, I met the Cubans and got engaged in the Cuban Revolution, which I have never been very far from that country. And in fact, when I was 18 and traveling in the Soviet Union, what was the Soviet Union, and meeting all of these incredible people, most of them from socialist countries, I realized something that we seem to have lost track of, which is that in order to shift the world, to bring it into balance and to make it inhabitable, livable, fruitful, and joyful, what we need more than anything is friendship. That friendship is so simple, we think, but it isn't really. It is a profound need for humanity. And it is a need not only between people that know each other, but it is a need that is fundamentally important for people who don't know each other and who can get to know each other. And in fact, I'm saying that we have to learn to be friends with people of other countries. Now, people in San Francisco probably have this as part of their toolkit and their medicine bundle already, because many of us who live in this area travel a great deal, and we have seen most of the world, actually. But for many, many, many people in this country, and especially in the South, where I come from, people are entirely foreign. I mean, they are so foreign that it is absolutely amazing. So that you can easily get someone to join a military and be sent to fight and kill people anywhere on the planet because they won't know where they're going. They will have no clue. So I had, for instance, two brothers who fought in Korea. Now, until they were inducted, they had never heard of Korea. Why would they? They were farmers, deep in the farm, which was the perfect place to be. And they ended up going halfway around the world, dropping bombs on people, jumping out of planes, so they could shoot people. And what did that do for them? Well, it destroyed them, basically. I mean, I went to Korea myself many, many years after they had gone there, just to see what could they have seen? What would they have made of it? You hear these black boys going from this little nowhere place in Georgia all the way to Korea, and there you have these big universities, you have, temples, you have people who love to read. Koreans are extremely interested in education. I mean, I've never seen so many people attached to so many books in my life. And there are my brothers who through apartheid USA have been kept deliberately ignorant and can barely write, a decent letter. So I thought how much I wished I could have brought them with me to Korea in the capacity that I found myself there, which was as a close friend of a Korean person. The theologian Hyun Kyun Chung, who is my friend and who represents a part of the world that I can feel. I don't have to just think about it as a place on the map that somebody is. Did you realize, for instance, that North Korea, where they now, make us think that the people are just absolutely nuts, part of the reason that they are so strange is that they were the first country to be completely napalmed. They were napalmed to such an extent that the pilots in some of the planes said that the whole country, as they went over it, smelled like barbecue. We live with some demonic forces in this world. And what do we have to say for ourselves? We are ignorant. For the most part, we do incredible evil in the world, and we are completely ignorant of it. We don't know. We never heard of it. We don't know where it is. We don't know who they are. We We might know their food only because there was a war and some of them came here and they had to make a living, so they cook, so we eat the food, and that's what we know. So our abysmal ignorance is part of what is, just totally hampering the possibility of real friendship. I remember on that visit to the Soviet Union, first we went to Helsinki because that's where this gigantic festival was celebrating the youth of the world. And the slogan that the Russians, the people that we were going to bomb, contributed to the whole affair was "Mir i druzba." Mir i druzba. I mean, that's what they said all the time, and they were always, giving you a shot of vodka and, hugging you and giving you those strange hats, and just trying to show that they were just people, that they really wanted to live and they wanted you to live, and they knew that, we Americans are so bad with languages, even our own. And so they, they would say, yeah, "Mir i druzba," peace and friendship, "Mir i druzba." This is what the cry was. This was in the early 60s. And how far from that we have come. How far we have come. I remember hundreds of us, making pilgrimages and circles around all these incredible arenas in Northern Europe and the Soviet Union, so confident that we were shifting the world in the direction of Mir i druzba, peace and friendship. This is where we were going. We really thought we were going to get there. And look where we are now. What do we do now? Well, you know what we do now. We just bomb the people, kill the people, poison the river, if there is a river, kill the ocean. So this poisoning of the water, I've been struggling with this over the last several weeks with my blog and just in my heart. The irradiation of the oceans is almost unbearable, and I'm sure you feel this with me. That it. Somebody said that all of us on this coast, up the coast to Canada and down the coast to Mexico, that we're just basically walking dead people because the Fukushima is taking us out, even if we don't feel it yet. And then from the other direction, we still have the fallout from Chernobyl. And if you haven't, and I'm sure people in this audience probably have already done this, but there are incredible videos now that show some of what happens to these children when they are exposed in utero to radiation that comes from a meltdown like Chernobyl or a blowdown like Fukushima. So this facing up to, these children who are just kind of warehoused, most of them, because they're so horribly disfigured and damaged that people really don't know what to do. I mean, the woman in charge of some of the more horrible cases, I mean, she was just in tears, and she admitted, she said, "I'm in tears always, I'm just, and how could you not be? Because this is what we're looking at for future generations. It's not as if the perpetrators here are going to avoid any of this. We're not. Forget about it. I mean, it's something that is, it's happening. And once it's happening on this planet, it is happening to the planet. It is happening to us. So, Mir i druzba, the insistence on being friends with people, with plants, with animals, with trees. I'm watching this incredible thing called Cosmos that I don't know how old it is, but this wonderful, black guy is the scientist. He's walking around talking about, standing next to a tree and showing you how basically, according to our DNA, we are one. We're the same. And that everything is like that. And that's how I feel. I mean, I didn't need him to tell me that, but it's nice that he does as a scientist. Because, usually whatever the scientist is telling you, you don't really trust. And you wonder who are paying their salaries, So I was happy to feel this kinship with nature. And actually, it's not as if it's me and nature, it's just all of us. I mean, we're it all together. So I brought along some things to read to you about how I see the possibility of change or not change. I mean, for instance, I don't feel like I have any belief left in me that what we have now is going to work. Do you? No, it's not going to work. I mean, it has never worked and it's not going to work. And to continue to believe that it's going to work against all the evidence, and it just goes on forever, is what Einstein would say is insanity, and I certainly agree with him. So what is to be done? I mean, what is to be done? I just wrote a poem last night with the title, What is to be done, because I discovered just by accident, but you know how when you go on YouTube, one thing leads to another, to another, to another, I mean, and I love it. I love YouTube. Boy, I mean, it is the rabbit hole, isn't it? So what I found out the other night was all this hidden pedophilia affecting young boys, and how entrenched it is, how long-standing it is, and how horrible it is. And I'm convinced that that is one of the roots. I know there are many roots, but that is one of the roots of our deep illness as a society, that we have not dealt with that. And until we do, in some kind of way that, makes it an open thing. I mean, we have to be able to discuss this. We can't just keep pretending that it's not happening, that these boys are not being abused in their homes, beaten up in their homes, raped by their fathers and their uncles and whoever else, and then sold. And surprise, surprise, you can just, these men, the grown men, can just basically buy them with a credit card and say what kind of boy they want to buy. Now this is, this is America. I mean, this is the shadow that is always there. It was partly hidden by slavery, because you could just do this to black people and black boys, and who would ever know or care? Or if you did it to Indian boys, they were out, on the reservation somewhere, and, the way the priests, how they raped the Indian girls, and then when the girls had babies, they just buried them right there at the boarding school. But now, you get to see how widespread it has been, happening right now as we're speaking, and also the preferences that these older men have for whoever it is that they are abusing. I mean, it's all so fascinating and deadly to us, to our society. So I want to just start by reading a poem that this one is called Hope to Sin Only in the Service of Waking Up, because the other thing that you look at when you're trying to be conscious, I have a friend whose name is Clarissa Pincola Estes, yes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. But she talks about how people always say, oh, I want to be conscious. I want to be conscious. Oh, God, let me be conscious. And, and she talks about how heavy it is, how heavy it can be, consciousness. If you remember the story of Vasilisa, who's carrying the skull with the fire inside of it, and how heavy it is because it's consciousness. She becomes aware that her sisters and her stepmother are deliberately doing her in, and so this consciousness is dragging her back. And that is what happens. You keep feeling like it's so heavy. How can you survive knowing what you know? I mean, that's where we are now, isn't it? I mean, how do we survive, really, knowing what we know? How do we move? So this poem is hope to sin only in the service of waking up, because sin, which they battered us with, the word and the meaning, the churchy meaning, they just battered us with this word so that we hardly know. Well, in San Francisco, you probably don't pay much attention, but in much of the world, that is not the case. And people can be kept in all kinds of little cages by just telling them, well, you're a sinner, and you're going to go to hell, and you're going to fry in the devil's frying pan. I mean, you'd be amazed at some of the things that people are told and the things that frighten them. But in any case, my view is that without, being who you are, there is no progress. You have to be that, if nothing else. And if that means to be, if to be means to sin, then hopefully that will wake you up at some point. So, hope never to believe it is your duty or right. Hope never to believe it is your duty or right to harm another simply because you mistakenly believe they are not you. Hope to understand the suffering. Hope to understand suffering as the hard assignment, even in school, you wish to avoid, but could not. Hope to be imperfect in all the ways. Hope to be imperfect in all the ways that keep you growing. Hope never to see another, not even a blade of grass, not even a blade of grass that is beyond your joy. Hope not to be a snob the very day love shows up in love's work clothes. Hope to see your own skin in the wood grains of your house. Hope to talk to trees and at last tell them everything you've always thought. Hope at the end to enter the unknown, knowing yourself, forgetting yourself also. Hope to be consumed, to disappear. Hope to be consumed, to disappear in your own love. Hope to know where you are, paradise, if nobody else does. Hope that every failure is an arrow pointing toward enlightenment. And hope to sin only in the service of waking up. So what do we do about the absolute abysmal situation that we're in? I was just reading from, I think, Nation of Change, a piece about how they're now able to just override those countries who don't want GMO foods, like New Zealand, because they have taken over already a kind of world, they're on their way to a world dictatorship, basically. And so even the people who would have decided that they don't want certain things in their water, in their land, have an incredible fight to be free of the tentacles of Monsanto. And I was so happy that Vandana Shiva is here. She's one of my great heroes because she just tells the truth about these awful people and their awful company and what it is doing to the planet. This poem here is called Democratic Womanism because, among other things, we all agree that the present system is just not working, to be very polite. And one of the reasons, obviously, is that it's unbalanced. You know, Native people always tell us about balance, indigenous people, wherever you go, balance. And our situation of being led by half of the people, the rich half, the rich upper half, means that we are so unbalanced that, you know, we are toppling over. That's what's happening. We're unbalanced and we're toppling. So this addresses part of that, democratic womanism. Womanism is not quite the same as feminism because it comes from my own culture, which is Black and Southern and rooted in the earth and feels, you know, a love of what is round and what is natural and what is you know, what is vital to the planet. Also, ideologically and philosophically, one of the tenets of it is that we're capable, that we see ourselves as women as capable. We don't see ourselves as weak. And in fact, you know, growing up as the descendant of people who were enslaved, it never really was permitted to cross our minds as women that we were supposed to be weak. I mean, you cannot be weak and pick 500 pounds of cotton a day. I mean, you cannot be weak, you know. So actually it's been something of a luxury these last 100 years or so to take to our beds and say, well, yeah, I'm feeling weak. So anyway, so this comes from this tradition. In this definition of womanism, it says you're traditionally capable, as in, Mama, I'm walking to Canada, and I'm taking you and a bunch of other slaves with me. And the reply to that is, it wouldn't be the first time. So there's attitude. You know, there is this sense of capability, that you are accountable, that you are an adult, or even as a child, that you have a right to stand your ground as who you are. So this says, you ask me why I smile. This was written, I think, around the last, not this past election, I mean, or the one before, but the very first, 2008, I think. You ask me why I smile when you tell me you intend in the coming national elections. No, it wasn't 2008 because I voted that time. Hold on a second. You ask me why I smile when you tell me you intend in the coming national elections to hold your nose and vote for the lesser of two evils. There are more than two evils out there, is one reason I smile. Another is that our old buddy Nostradamus comes to mind with his dreadful 400-year-old prophecy that our world and theirs too, our enemies, lots of kids involved there, will end by nuclear Nakba or Holocaust in our lifetime, which makes the idea of elections and the billions of dollars wasted on them somewhat fatuous. A Southerner of color, my people held the vote very dear, while others, for centuries, merely appeared to play with it. One thing I can assure you of is this: I will never betray such pure hearts by voting for evil, even if it were microscopic, which, as you can see in any newscast, no matter the slant, it is not. I want something else, a different system entirely, one not seen on this earth for thousands of years, if ever. Democratic womanism. Notice how this word, womanism, has man right in the middle of it. That's one reason I like it. He is there, front and center, but he is surrounded. I want to vote and work for a way of life that honors the feminine, a way that acknowledges the theft of the wisdom female and dark mother leadership might have provided our spaceship all along. I am not thinking of a talking head kind of gal. happy to be mixing it up with the baddest bad boys on the planet. Her eyes a slit, her mouth a zipper. No, I am speaking of true regime change, where women rise to take their place en masse at the helm of Earth's frail and failing ship, where each 1,000 years of our silence is examined with regret, and the cruel manner in which our values of compassion and kindness have been ridiculed and suppressed, brought to bear on the disaster of the present time. The past must be examined closely, I believe, before we can leave it there. I am thinking of democratic and perhaps socialist womanism. For who else knows so deeply how to share our mothers and grandmothers, how to share but mothers and grandmothers, big sisters and aunts, to love and adore both female and male, not to mention those in between. To work at keeping the entire community fed, educated, and safe. Democratic womanism, democratic socialist womanism would have as its icons such fierce warriors for good as Vandana Shiva, Aung San Suu Kyi, Wangari Maathai, Harriet Tubman, Yoko Ono, Frida Kahlo, Angela Davis, Celia Sanchez, and Barbara Lee. And just a quick aside about Celia Sanchez, in case you don't know who that is. Without Celia Sanchez, there would have been no Cuban Revolution. You are also on this list, but it is so long, ISIS would appear midway, that I must stop or be unable to finish the poem. So just know I've stood you in a circle that includes Marion Wright Edelman, Amy Goodman, Sojourner Truth, Gloria Steinem, and Mary McLeod Bethune, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, John Lennon, Howard Zinn, Derek Jensen, and Chris Hedges are there too, happy to be surrounded. I hope. There is no system now in place that can change the disastrous course Earth is on. Who can doubt this? The male leaders of Earth appear to have abandoned their very senses, though most appear to live now entirely in their heads. They murder humans and other animals, forests and rivers and mountains every day they are in office, and never seem to notice it. They eat and drink devastation. Women of the world, is this devastation us? Would we kill whole continents for oil or anything else, rather than limit the number of consumer offspring we produce and learn how to make our own fire? Democratic womanism, democratic socialist womanism, a system of governance we can dream and imagine and build together, one that recognizes at least 6,000 years of brutally enforced complicity in the assassination of Mother Earth, but foresees 6,000 years ahead of us when we will not submit. What will we need? 100 years at least to plan. 500 will be handed us gladly when the planet is scared enough. To sit in circles of women meeting, to organize ourselves, and allied with men brave enough to stand with women. Men brave enough to stand with women. Nurture our planet to a degree of health, and without apology, impossible to make a bigger mess than has been made. Devote ourselves, heedless of opposition, to tirelessly serving and resuscitating our mothership, and with gratitude for her care of us, worshipfully commit to rehabilitating it. So that's part one of that poem. But here is the other part. Because what happens, you know, as a poet, a writer, I'm sure there are many of you here, is that life keeps going on, and you keep refining your thinking about what it is that you need. What is it that you really need? What is it that the earth really needs? So the evolution of this becomes democratic motherism. My partner, a musician and Vietnam veteran, virtually kidnapped and forced to serve in that disastrous and genocidal war without his consent, is someone brave enough to stand with women, unafraid of being surrounded by or led by them. In conversing about what it will take to reclaim our planet, we agreed that what Earth needs more than anything, is mothering. Mother Earth needs mothers, regardless of gender. Though we all recognize who most mothers have been and are. Mothering is an instinct, yes, but it is also a practice. It can be learned. For women, it has been an aeons-long experience, the art and necessity of taking care of all, of everything, of mothering. So perhaps the new ism we are talking about is not classic womanism, but motherism, democratic motherism. In any case, we will continue to endure and detest the systems currently in place in which the condition of countless starving, tortured, enslaved, and murdered children is seen as acceptable unless we forthrightly begin to envision and work for something better, some way for humans to exist and thrive without suffering the despair of every second of every day, knowing our present predicament's greatest cause is humanity's fear of sharing with others. And it's rapidly growing, partly because of this fear, self-hatred. We hate ourselves because we're so greedy and we're stingy. You know? On a recent visit to a still and quiet sacred site in Hawaii that is now surrounded by the pollution of unimaginable overcrowdedness and lack of peace, I recently experienced an insight that seemed at the time to be a direct message from ancestors who had used that site for thousands of years. It came to me in the form of the name for a new world political party. No kidding. The Mother Defend Yourself Party. The Mother Defend Yourself Party. Mother referring to Earth. A poem, of course, accompanied it. Mother, defend yourself. We who love you stand witness. We who love you stand witness to your innocence. One of the party's first responsibilities would be to unite all segments of the globe in making offerings at the scene of every place the Earth fights back in the effort to reclaim her freedom and integrity from the tyranny imposed on her by humanity. Where dams have burst, where forest fires have raged, where hillsides have crumbled, where rivers have run wild, I am saying, as I believe, that we must begin again to have conversation with our planet. It was in Hawaii on an earlier visit, again to a sacred site, though of course all of Hawaii is sacred, as is all of the earth, that this became even clearer to me. A friend and I had gone on a tour of sorts that brought us to this place. We got out of the van and stood with our group at the designated lookout point. We were looking into a landscape that, though beautiful in the Kodak moment sense, was lifeless and uninspiring. I commented on this to my Hawaiian friend, an artist, who shrugged and said, "Of course. That is because what you're looking at, this whole area, was traditionally sung to." "What?" I said. "Yes," she said. "Where we're standing used to be almost like a stage. Folks who knew what they were doing, praising the Aina, the land, would come here and sing their gratitude." "Well," I said, "you are a singer. Sing." Grabbing her tiny ukulele, which accompanied her everywhere, she did just that. As she sang in Hawaiian, a language outlawed by U.S. colonial rule for decades, her aunt had created a Hawaiian dictionary in an effort to preserve the language. It seemed to me the trees and other vegetation responded by standing taller, fluffing themselves up. The flowers among them appeared to fling their scent. I became vividly aware of everything's aliveness. This token of gratitude, awareness, affection might be our party's first step. Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. This has been an amazing weekend, and thanks to Alice Walker and Vandana Shiva, all the panelists and all the speakers that have been here. We do want to send you away with some small amount of closing idea, something to coalesce all the different perspectives that have come about because of the many people that have participated. And we really want to leave you with something that's going to kind of drive you forward into our messages for the next conferences, the next events you might be putting on. And see if we can get this working. I'm also, because I know you're all intellectually probably exhausted at this point, everything I say I'm going to try to have on screen. So, first I want to start off with a quote, and this is a quote that was by Arundhati Roy, who, if you remember, was at our 2011 Earth at Risk here in San Francisco. "If there is any hope for the world at all, it does not live in the climate change conference rooms or in cities with tall buildings. It lives low down and on the ground with its arms around people who go to battle every day to protect their forests, their mountains and their rivers, because they know that the forests, the mountains, and the rivers protect them." So what that really means to us is building more coalitions. And that horizontal hostility is going to kill us. We want to create connections. We want to find places where we have commonalities and not exaggerate and focus on the differences. We know we all have differences. We know we all have different perspectives, but we also all have a lot of the same perspectives, and that is what's really important, is those core values. So, we really want to encourage everybody. This is jumping a lot. Anyway, please support our efforts to try to do this again. We want to do this again as often as possible. We haven't had one in a few years, and we want to have one very soon. I know many people have expressed that they had a really good time, so I think it means that they're really becoming enlightened and loving it very much. And also, definitely go out into the, when you're out in the lobby out there, definitely support those tabling organizations. Those are the action groups that we really want you to get involved in. And if you have monetary support or if you have physical support, please visit them and offer whatever you can. I want to thank Deep Green Resistance, Warrior Sisters, Indigenous Women Against the Sex Industry, Stop Porn Culture, PM Press, Unistoten Camp, Elder Creek Center for the Land, Women's Liberation Front, Survival International, Place for Sustainable Living, Code Pink, Vancouver Rape Relief, and One Struggle, who are all the groups that really helped us out this weekend. And thank you very much to some particular individuals and all the volunteers. Courtney Mitchell was a big help, not only on the intellectual side of being on stage, but he was also a big help in developing a lot of the marketing and everything we did to make this all possible, so you knew that it was actually happening. Carson Wright, who many people will think now must be famous because his posters supposedly are amazing, because every single person I've talked to said that. So major thank you to Carson Wright, who is also one of our security guards. I don't know if he's in the room right now. There is Carson up there in the front corner. So he spent a ton of time developing the marketing stuff. And thank you very much, Carson. Temris Ridge, who made the video, if you saw it online, which was also fantastic and worked with a lot of the same marketing tools and everything. The Earth at Risk security team has been great for us. The Palace of Fine Arts staff has been great. And a lot of you in the audience were also big help on getting the word out there, putting posters up and everything. So thank you very much for all of you who did that. But this event would not have happened in any way, shape, or form if it weren't for Randall and Janet Wallace and the Wallace Action Fund. They were integral in getting the funding for us to make this all happen. So thank you very much to Randall and Janet Wallace. And last, I want to leave you with a last quote that I think summarizes how you should move forward out into the world after this weekend. We've spent too much time thinking, supposing that if we weigh in advance the possibilities of any action, it will happen automatically. We have learned, rather too late, that action comes not from thought, but from readiness for responsibility. So that was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And so I really think that summarizes where we're trying to go and trying to move forward and get our bodies out there and really get our thought focusing on this. That's it for me. We do need everybody to be out by 6:05, so do be as quick as you can at the tables you want to visit, and everybody have some safe travels out there.